So not too long ago, I made a perfect car. I kind of said it was perfect, but it wasn't really perfect at all, since it basically didn't do anything properly and was basically just really bad in everything it did. So today I'm just going to make a normal car. Now, I'm going to admit I haven't made a proper car in a while. I always make stuff like, tanks or airships or things that fly. So yeah. So this isn't exactly going to be hard, but it's going to be quite fun, since I've now done something, that's quite small, like a car, before. So yeah, let's do this. Now, I didn't exactly know how this thing was going to look, but I basically just started placing some metal, and it didn't look too bad in the end, I don't think. Now, after a while, it looked like this. Now, of course, the first thing you need to do is actually make this thing drivable, since I at least want to see how good it drives before we actually add any of the features. Now, this thing looked pretty good, and I'm quite proud of how it looked, even though it doesn't actually have any wheels yet, and also can't really do anything yet. So then I started connecting everything up. I basically started connecting all the bearings just to make it so it could turn, but of course we needed an engine. Now this thing is quite small, but it doesn't matter too much since we're not going to be putting much stuff into it. This generally is going to be a nice car that we can just drive around. And now we can drive. Now this thing actually drives pretty well. It is a bit bumpy, but it doesn't really matter. And it kind of drifts a bit, but it's actually pretty fun to drive around. It's pretty fast as well, which is good, but of course we can always change that. So then I started adding an ejector seat. Now I've made quite a few ejector seats, in fact. My last video I believe I made one, and they're pretty cool. Now, I quite enjoy making them because they're just funny, and also they probably won't be used, but they're also not very safe. Now, I'm pretty bad at making them somehow, since it just requires quite a bit more timing, and I'm not very good at that. As you can see, I got around this far before having to choose another design. It just wouldn't work really if you're in the seat, so yeah. Then I started, adding more pistons, since I wanted this thing to work quite well. And in the end, it actually did. Now, in the end, I could only use 2 pistons, since it just, wouldn't work with, 3. And this thing was actually starting to work. I did go into a few problems, which wasn't really a problem with the actual mechanism, it's just because I placed a block in the wrong place, and basically just stopped the Spoken from shooting. And as you can see, it works. Now, that might have not ejected it out the car, which is kind of a problem, but it's pretty good. Now we can actually eject out the car. I mean, this isn't safer than just, not ejecting. And also, if you don't eject, the car basically just goes on forever until you jump out. Now, this thing's actually pretty cool. At the moment, of course, there aren't loads of features, but it can drive it mountains pretty well, but it's not very heavy either, which is kind of a problem. But it's actually pretty good. It's quite fast, but I've never really done anything like this. I've never just took some time to make like a car in scrap mechanic, so cars are kind of boring after a while. And the ejector seat kind of glitched out there and sent us absolute miles, which was a bit of a problem. Then I added boost. Now this is just going to be 2 thrusters on max power, and it would have just made the car a lot funner, I thought. And now the car is quite a lot funner. The boost I mostly hold on it all the time for some reason, which makes this thing go very fast. It's pretty fun to use as well, especially when you go off ramps or anything, or jumps. For some reason I also put the engine up, and the engine will change quite a bit through this whole thing, because I couldn't decide on the engine speed, and as you can see it bumps around loads of this one, so I'm probably going to change it. So that's when I started adding suspension, because I was getting annoyed because of the bumpiness, because it almost made a slip over last time, and it's just annoying again. Now the problem with the suspension is that it couldn't compress loads, but it was a first step in a good idea. Since it wasn't a pretty good idea to add suspension, but I just didn't add it in the right way, and I only added it in the front. It did stop bouncing, which was really nice, but it didn't help a lot either, since when you go to high speed, you'll probably bounce up and down quite a bit. The ejector seat still works though. I did have to, well, detach the ejector seat button to the actual seat, because I keep accidentally pressing it instead of boost, which basically means that I just ejected like quite a bit. Now this thing was actually quite a lot of fun to just drive around. In fact, most of this video I was just driving it around, so it was just quite a lot of fun to actually just explore the scrap mechanic map for once. Now, this thing was actually pretty good, and I did actually add quite a few things without saying, like some extra pipes, and also I just changed the engine speed quite a bit, so I just couldn't agree on the speed. I added off-road suspension in the front, which basically helped a lot, since it basically was automatically one block higher, but automatically compressed as soon as it touched the ground, so you couldn't really tell. But also, it means if our nose gets lifted up, then the suspension will, well, obviously, it will get bigger and basically just keep traction on the ground. It also makes the car bounce a bit when you let go of cliffs, but it's still pretty good. Now, this thing was loads of fun to just use, and it was actually, well, pretty good as well. It wasn't exactly great at all actually like doing precise like maneuvers like turning properly. It doesn't really matter. I also noticed at this point there was a kind of suspension glitch going on, but well. Now I also added the suspension to the back, of course, since it was actually pretty well useful and it did help quite a bit. Now this boost is pretty insane, since it made you go pretty quick. This thing is also kind of uncontrollable. Now then I started adding spud guns. Now, there weren't going to be loads, there was only going to be 3, and they were going to be, well, hidden inside the car. And then the pistol would push them up so you could shoot, and then they go back down when you stop pressing the button. I just made a simple loop, which shoots the spud guns over and over again, and it was pretty good. As you can see, it kind of works. The only problem is that the piston doesn't go up enough, which kind of makes it shoot the car. But now it works. Now, there was one slight problem. Now, here's the moment when I noticed a suspension glitch, and it kind of made us tilt and stuff, and it was really weird. And I thought this was caused by the piston in the actual spud gun mechanism, so I basically got rid of all the spud guns. So yeah, then I attached the spud gun to another spud gun to a button, which basically just made this thing well, a lot less effective. But it was also still pretty good. In case you're wondering, this didn't solve the problem, which absolutely sucks, but we're stuck with it anyway. Now this thing was actually pretty good. I did get rid of back wheel drive because it made this thing a lot better without it. Now, of course, you do accelerate a lot slower, which sucks, but this thing works a lot better without it, and you can actually turn properly, which is absolutely great. Now, everything about this was pretty good. It was quite simple, which is what I liked about it. And I also went around exploring the creative map at the same time, which I hardly ever do. But yeah, there were a few problems with it, but it was still relatively good, and a lot better than my perfect car. The suspension glitch is a big problem though, I've got to say. I even tried adding a suspension glitch to counteract it, but I just had to deal with it the entire time, which sucked. But this thing was actually pretty good. Now you could like go miles with this off the ramp with thrusters, which is great, and you could actually do like quite a lot of it. It was definitely good to go around, but of course the suspension glitch didn't make it unusual, but just made it very hard to use. Now, lots of this time I was just ramming these firebots because they're quite fun to ram, I want to say. And this thing took no damage at all. I'm practically sure anyway. But we didn't really do any damage to them either. But, ah well. Now this thing was, well yeah, it was pretty good. It was also quite fun to mess around in, and it was quite easy to make. But it was quite a lot of fun to make as well, since it wasn't so hard. And I just generally had a lot of fun making this video, to be honest. So yeah. Now this thing isn't exactly the perfect car, but it's a lot better than my previous perfect car. And I think I definitely improved, and it's pretty good. Because I haven't really made like a proper car like this in a long time. This car's absolutely great, and I quite enjoy making it. So this is a very different way for me to play the game, and I quite enjoyed it. Now, this thing was so much fun to mess around in, and bye.